most of the time when people play bass, you're not really playing chords, but
Yeah, I don't really do any chord stuff, man.
it's fun. It's fun just because it expands what the bass does. Maybe you don't do it all the time, like in a ensemble setting.
Yeah.
But the way that I kind of started messing around with it was I basically started with the major scale. Like if you take the G major scale and we just kind of like play it all the way up, like on the E string. What you can do is you can play tenths. That's basically a major third up an octave. So we have G and B right here, which would be your first tenth, and that's kind of
Yeah, root third of a major and minor, and I guess that's just gonna be major and minor. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically what you're doing right here, and this is one thing that I found with piano also, in the lower register of the piano, when you play tenths, they sound really full and resonant, and this is kind of like what you're doing.
Versus dropping an octave and just goes all.
Yeah, I mean, this is super muddy, and then this is not quite as resonant when you're playing it like this. These sound super nice, but not quite as full. And part of the reason for that is you don't want to have like notes too close together when you're playing bass, as you know. It sounds super muddy.
Yeah.
And there's something called the lower interval limit, and this is basically a theoretical term which says that certain notes sound muddy when you play them low. That's basically what it's like.
Like individual notes?
Yeah, it's basically you have to play, if I played this up here, that doesn't sound super muddy, but if I played it down here, it does.
Right. Yeah.
And the reason is the harmonics would clash down here. And that's just like, you don't want to do that.
Right.
So, so what you would do is you'd play the tenths, moving all the way up the major scale. So what I'm doing basically is the G and the B of a G major chord, the A and the C, the root and the third of an A minor chord, except voiced on the G string up here and the E string down here. The B and the D of a B minor chord, voiced here on the E string and the G string right there. Then we have the C and the E of a C major chord, the D and the F sharp of a D major chord, D, E and the G of an E minor chord, the F sharp and the A of an F sharp diminished chord, and then the G and the B of a G major chord. There's a reason why I fingered it the way that I did, and this is a tip that I actually got from Yannick Gwizdala.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Lay it on me. Let's do it.
This is basically, you can, when you play it like this, it sounds really nice. But what you can do is you can add a grace note if you finger it with your second finger on the E string. You can add a grace note in behind the third. So you do like this, like that, yeah. Exactly, yeah.
But did you use your ring finger there?
Yeah, I typically use my ring finger for that one.
And you went to your...
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to do the third. You could do it either
Sure.
the C sharp, which is technically not in the scale, but it does sound quite nice, or you could use the C, which is in the scale, but it doesn't quite sound.
But it clashes, yeah.
Exactly. And then finally, and that,
That's brilliant, yeah. Because what he's saying is you could just very well use the same two fingers. Whoops.
Yeah.
Right, and you can just slide it up and
and that's the brilliant thing, because a lot of times people will end up wanting to use your first finger on that low string.
Sure, right.
And there's something a little bit more comfortable with using the second finger rather than the third finger.
Yeah, I would use my middle finger. That's probably the way I do it, yeah.
Exactly, and part of the reason is when you're down here, it requires a little bit more leverage with the hand. You kind of have to bend your wrist a little bit more, and ideally you shouldn't be bending your wrist at all. You should kind of just be keeping your hand in as relaxed a position as you can. So the fingering governs what you play, which is kind of a fun thing. So that's kind of the first step for practicing chords.
So like, are you putting on time? Like, are you playing it in time and making a groove out of it, or just like...
You could, yeah. I mean, the thing is that each one of these things can fit within any kind of chord progression. So if you're thinking like a 1, 4, 5 chord progression, literally any kind of chord. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm there with you, baby. Let's do it. Calling John Mayer tomorrow. If we got his next song, let's do it.
There we go. And it sounds really full. It sounds like a full guitar chord because each one of these bass notes sounds super full and fat on its own.
Right.
So that's the first step. You can replace every bass line you ever play with a tenth now.
Excellent.
Don't recommend it, but you could.
It's possible, yeah.
The next step is to do something that guitarists love, and that's something called a spread triad, which is basically...
Yeah, you said spread. I'd never heard that word before. So what do you mean by spread triad?
So if you take basically a G major chord, so G, B, D right here, this is how you'd play a G major chord on a bass in closed position, meaning like every note goes immediately after the other across 3 strings. G, B, and D.
Like on a piano, if you just went fingers 1, 3, and 5, bling, that's
Bling.
what you would get, yeah.
Exactly. Not super practical on bass. Not the most practical thing,
right,
but
right,
it sounds all right. Especially one thing you can do is to do the Ionic thing of adding a grace note before the third. What I'm doing.
Oh, yeah. Same things before.
It's a fun little thing, and actually it's a pianistic thing also. Piano players love using the second before the third. But a spread triad is when you take this and you spread it out, basically. You spread it out across more than 1 octave. A closed triad is whenever you have all the notes within 1 octave. An open triad is whenever it's across more than 1 octave.
I always call that just an open voicing.
Open voicings is another way of doing it. I think it's a fairly...
Is that 2 different things, though?
No, it's the same. It's the same. I think just guitar players will call them spread triads for whatever reason.
All right.
So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to fill out the missing note from the basic
triad. So the fifth.
Thank you. Fifth. Yes.
That's the one.
That's the one. So this is our first spread triad with root, 5th, 3rd, and then we're going to continue that up throughout the entire scale. So yeah, root, 5th, 3rd, root, 5th, 3rd, root, 5th, 3rd, G, D, B, A, E, C, B, F sharp, D, or major, minor, minor. And the way that I'm fingering this, and this is important, I'm not barring the whole thing. And that's kind
like
of,
a guitar player would. That's
Exactly.
like your bar chord shape.
It looks like I'm barring, but I'm not.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, you're not touching these two.
Yeah. So the pressure points are the kind of the tip of the finger and almost the joint of that first finger.
right back here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And because you could bar, but that feels after a while really gets to you with the bass.
Well, there's really no reason. Yeah.
And there's no reason, exactly. So pressure points are here and here, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going up the scale. So we have root, 5th, 3rd, root, 5th, 3rd, root, 5th, 3rd. So I didn't put enough pressure there.
Yeah.
And then root, 5th, 3rd for this F diminished, which is a pretty tricky one. And then finally root, 5th, 3rd. So these are a little beefier. These are a little, you can play each one of these tenths and each one sounds great and not muddy. This sounds a little muddy at a certain point.
And the lower register definitely, yeah.
Yeah, up here it sounds great. If it was intonated properly, it sounds great.
It has potential to sound great, is what he's saying. Yeah.
This could be good.
Yeah.
It might be good.
Story of my life.
It might be good. We might be good. So what I can, and this is a fun way of just practicing it and experimenting with these shapes, you arpeggiate it. And the way that I generally arpeggiate things is I do thumb, index finger, and weirdly enough, 3rd finger. I'm not really quite sure why. I think I like keeping each one of these fingers here. Thumb, 1 index, middle 2, whatever this string is, D, and then ring finger is in the G string.
If you're a classical guitarist, that's P-I-M-A.
P-I-M-A.
All my friends were classical guitar players.
P-I-A. P-I-A. So we're going to do P-I-A. So it would look like this.
So yeah, I see what you're doing. So you're basically giving each finger a string.
Exactly.
And no matter what, like, you wouldn't move this one to that one, basically, just like giving each one their own place.
Exactly, and I end up finding that is the most comfortable on bass just because the string spacing is so much wider than guitar.
Right,
and it's just, we have 4 fingers that we typically use for classical technique, and I just end up using them like
Yeah, because
this.
at that point, your pinky's it's not on.
Yeah, I guess for 5-string stuff, but I don't really play 5-string all that much. So so that's kind of like the next step in this practicing. And notice that we're not doing anything fancy with like 7th chords or anything like that. We're just kind
triads.
We're just kind of mining the fretboard for triads. And the next step after this, I mean, bass players were usually very root oriented. Mm-hmm. So we basically take we think just from the bottom up. But another way to kind of visualize this, quote unquote, is thinking from the top down. So instead of thinking of this as a G-rooted chord, because it is a G-rooted chord, the thing that our ear is picking up on most is actually this top note. We would call this the soprano voice, or the soprano note. This is a B right here. And if I was to play, for example, like the Star Spangled Banner, I wanted to harmonize that with all G chords, each one of those is a voicing of a G major chord, a G major triad, but just I'm thinking, and your ear is hearing that top note rather than any one of these bottom notes.
Sure, right, yeah, the melody. Yeah.
The melody note. And this is kind of a thing, it's an important thing when you're playing chords. The melody note is actually what your ear gets drawn to, no matter what. When you're hearing this, most people are hearing the versus or like a super low one. Just because it's outside the register of human singing.
For most of us, yeah.
For most of us, yeah. You'd have to be a pretty insane bass voice to sing that.
Right.
And our ear is drawn to the frequency spectrum of the human singing voice. So this note right here, this B up here, is just what our ears are going to hear. So what I like doing is I like practicing all the different inversions of each one of these triads and be very cognizant and be actually thinking about this melody note rather than the bass note. I'm thinking instead of G, B, D, which would be the bass notes right here, I'm thinking...
You're honing it on G.
I'm honing it on these notes right here. And it helps because when you're harmonizing melodies, that's what you're actually doing, is you're hearing those top notes rather than the bottom notes. So, for example, let's go through each one of these. Let's do G, and then what we're going to think, and this is how I think about each going across each string, I think, okay, what's the next note in G major up from this G? Okay, well, that's this B right here.
Right.
What's the next note in G major up from this D? And that's this G right here. What's the note up from D in G major up from this B?
That would be the D.
D. So that's kind of my process, is I'm thinking like, what's the next note up?
Per string.
Per string, yeah.
So the notes are always G, B, and D. Right?
Exactly.
We're just moving up to the next logical one. Okay.
So this is our second inversion, but then I'm conceptualizing this around this D right here. This is our melody note. And then this is the next one, which is second inversion, and I'm conceptualizing it around this G, which is the top voice.
Yeah.
So, I guess the pièce de résistance, the way that we tie all this stuff together.
The method behind the madness.
The method behind the madness. This is basically just getting complete control over every single chord in a particular key. I'm going to practice each one of these in order.
I see.
Across the entire neck. So what I'm doing...
Until you run out of room.
Until I run out of room, and I run out of room on the F sharp diminished.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is I'm doing root position, first inversion, second inversion, then to A minor, root position, first inversion, second inversion, then to B minor, root position, first inversion, second inversion, etc. Run out of room.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, to like kind of recap, like what all that is, that is the method of kind of like approaching the major scale, just what chords are on bass, at least the being able to visualize where everything is in relationship, not just to the roots right there, but also to the top.
Well, yeah, and it gets you moving across the whole entire neck. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, if you like what I do, please click on the subscribe button right here. And if you really like what I do, then click over here to see how affordable it is to join me at thebassist.net. But if you just want the free stuff, then click here to check out whatever YouTube's sophisticated robots think you should watch next. I'm sure they know what's best for you.